Hey everyone, welcome to byGoldenberry. I'm Tina. If you're a complete beginner to crochet but you still want to make your own Christmas decorations, then this really easy star crochet pattern is for you. All you need to know to make this pattern is how to make a chain, how to slip stitch, and how to weave in your ends. And that's it. So let's get started. What you'll need to make this pattern is some fingering weight yarn. I'm going to use 100% hemp. This is also a great pattern for if you have any scrap pieces of yarn. We won't use a lot of yarn. So if you have any odd bits of yarn that you want to use up, then this is a great pattern for that. You could also use some linen, which is really nice. I really like it in this silvery grey colour. That makes a star like this. It really shines the light off the Christmas tree really well, so that's a really nice yarn to use. You could also make them in lace weight yarn if you like, to make them a bit more dainty, which is also really nice. I've made another white one in lace weight, which is really pretty. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using fingering weight yarn to make a star that looks like this. You'll also need a 2.5mm crochet hook, a stitch marker to keep track of the central loop. I'll talk about that later, but I'm going to use a paper clip. You can use a normal stitch marker or whatever you prefer. A couple of darning needles, one to weave in the ends and maybe a smaller one to attach the hanging string. You'll also need either some lace weight yarn or some thread to make the hanging string as well. Some scissors and some pins to pin down the star into shape. We'll also be using a setting liquid in order to set the star into its final shape. I'll show you how to make that later on. So let's get the yarn on the hook and begin by chaining 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. And from here we're going to slip stitch into the first chain of our foundation chain. So we'll put our hook into the end, yarn over and pull through both loops that are on the hook to make a loop. So this is going to be the center of the star, and what we're going to do is we're going to grab our stitch marker and I'm going to just mark the whole loop. Just going to put it around this whole section here, just so that we can remember that this is the center. Because as we're making the star, as we're making the points of the star, they're going to be looking very similar to this. So we want to make sure we're keeping track of the center. From this point, we're going to chain 12 again. And we're going to come back to our center loop and we're going to skip the next stitch and slip stitch into the one after that. But we need to be careful here because it's quite easy to miss too many stitches. So just have a quick look at where you slip stitched into last so we can see it here. So that was our first slip stitch. We're going to skip this one and slip stitch into the next one. Okay, and that's it. That's our first point of the star. And we're just going to repeat that all the way around. So we'll do another 12. And again, we'll skip the next stitch and slip stitch into the stitch afterwards. So check again where you slip stitched into last. So that was here. We're going to skip this next one and slip stitch into the next one. And again, another 12 chains. Check where your last slip stitch was. Skip the next stitch and slip stitch into the next one. Okay, so far we have 3 points, and you can see that they're very similar to the center, so the stitch marker is really important. So carry on and do another 3 around this edge and meet me back here when you're done. I'm about to finish my last point, and I'm just going to remove this stitch marker. And here you'll see that we only have 1 stitch left in the middle. So I'm just going to skip that one, and I'm going to slip stitch into the first join that we did. Okay, and that's it. So we have six points, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the center here. So take your crochet hook out of the loop. We're going to use our scissors to cut this end. And we're going to weave that end through the loop to make a knot and secure the star. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our darning needle and we're going to weave these 2 ends around the center to kind of close it up. So if we look at the finished star, the center is all closed up in the middle. So we're going to use these 2 strings that we've got left and weave it around and close it up in the middle. Cut the ends again to make them equal, to make it easier. And take your darning needle. And we're going to be working on the back side here, so that it's not so visible from the front. And we're just going to kind of weave in and out of the stitches around the middle. Doesn't really have to be exact or anything, or perfect. And just keep going around. until it kind of closes up. You can pull the strings until they close up in the middle. If you want, you can turn it around and have a look. Yeah, that's good. You could go back against yourself just to make it a bit more secure. Oops, come out. Maybe do that a couple of times. Okay. Cut the end off. And there we go, that's the finished star. And then to make it into the shape that we want, we're going to set it with our setting solution. This is our setting solution, and the way I made this was I put 235 ml of water in a small pan and start heating it, and then add a tablespoon of corn flour and keep heating and stirring until it thickens up. And then you can take it off the heat and add another 235 ml of cold water and leave it to cool before you use it. You can also store it in the fridge and use it later on, it's completely fine. So we're going to be using this to set the star into shape, and I'm going to be using a piece of card to pin it down. And all we need to do is we just dip the star into the liquid, make sure it's fully submerged. Maybe give it a rub just to get all the liquid into the fibres. Squeeze it out. You can give it a dab on a towel. And take your piece of card and then pin it into the shape that you like. So I'm going to get my pins. I'm just going to take this point and just pinch it into the shape that I want. Take my pin and pin it down. And I'm going to do the same for each point around the star. And if it's not quite in the right shape, you can move them about just to adjust it to however you like. You can give it another pinch in places to make it a bit more star shape, or open them up a bit. And that's it. And then you can leave it overnight to dry completely. And then it will end up like this, where it's kept its shape and it's not too stiff or anything. But you can also dip it more than once. You can let it dry and then dip it again to make it a bit more set if you like, if you prefer it that way. And then once it's set, you can use your smaller darning needle to attach the hanging string. I used some lace weight hemp yarn here. And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see your stars that you're making. Let me know in the comments how they turned out and what yarn you used. And please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.